जय गोपी जनवल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यशोदा नन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यमुनातीरा यमुनातीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी जय गोपीचंद वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी जय गोपीचंद वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यशोदा नन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यमुनातीरा यमुनातीरा वनचारी हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय राधा माधव राधा माधव राधे जय राधा राष्ट्रहरि राधा राष्ट्रहरि राधे जय गौरांगी बैंगलोरेश्वर गौरांगी जय जगन्नाथ जय बलदेवा जय सुभद्रा जय सुदर्शन जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय अनंत देव प्रहलाद नरसिंह जय अनंत देव जय नित्य चैतन्य जय नित्य चैतन्य जय नित्य चैतन्य जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय गुरुदेव जय जय गुरुदेव निताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल। नाम संकीर्तन महायज्ञ की जय जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्रजाचार्य स्तोत्र शुद्ध इस डिवाइन ग्रेस अभय चरणारविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। ISKCON founder Acharya, BBD founder Acharya, Savior of the whole universe, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajak Stotra Shatak. His Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai. अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, नवाचार्य श्री हरदास ठाकुर की जय, जय श्री रूप सनातन पट्ट रघुनाथ, श्री जीव गोपाल भट्टदास रघुनाथ, षड गोस्वामी प्रभुगण की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण चंद्र गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की जय, मायापुर नवद्वीप धाम की जय, श्री क्षेत्र श्री जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय, गंगा माई की जय, जमुना माई की जय, भक्ति देवी की जय, तुलसी महारानी की जय, समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories and glories and glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga, Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। नष्टप्रायेष्वभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवतं सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुलङ्गायते यत्प्रपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुदिनतारिणं परमानन्दं माधवं श्रीचैतन्य ईश्वरं। हरि ओम तत्सत्। Hare Krishna, I welcome all the devotees to this morning Srimad Bhagavatam version. Today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, chapter 29. And the verse numbers that we're going to take today are 21 and 22. Just allow me to share my screen. Take 1 minute to open the... Yes, there we are. अहं सर्वेषु भूतेषु भूतात्मचिष्टा सदा तम अवज्ञां मां मार्तेया कुरुते च विदम्बनाम्। अहं सर्वेषु भूतेषु भूतात्मावस्थि तथा तम अवज्ञां मां मार्तेया कुरुते च विदम्बनाम्। अहं सर्वेषु भूतेषु भूतात्मावशिष्टा सदा तम अवज्ञात् मां मार्तेया कुरुते च विदम्बनाम्। Word to word translation. Aham, I, Sarveshu, in all, Bhuteshu, living entities, Bhutatma, the super soul in all living beings, Avastita, situated, Sada, always, Tam, that super soul, Avagna, disregarding, Mama, me, Marteya, mortal man, Kurute, performs, Archa, of the worship of the deity, Vidambana, limitation. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Jai Shri Prabhupada. Translation: I am present in every living entity as the super soul. If someone neglects or disregards that super soul everywhere and engages himself with the worship of the deity in the temple, that is simply imitation. Purport. In purified consciousness or Krishna consciousness, one sees the presence of Krishna everywhere. Therefore, if one only engages in deity worship in the temple and does not consider the other living entities, then he is in the lowest grade of devotional service. One who worships the deity in the temple and does not show respect to others is a devotee on the material platform. In the lowest stage of devotional service, a devotee should try to understand everything in relationship with Krishna and try to serve everything in that spirit. To serve everything means to engage everything in the service of Krishna. If a person is innocent and does not know his relationship with Krishna, an advanced devotee should try to engage him in the service of Krishna. One who is advanced in Krishna consciousness can engage not only in living being, but everything in the service of Krishna. We are also reading the 22nd verse. Just allow me 1 minute to open this verse as well. Sorry, it's taking a little longer than normal. I think the net seems to be a little. Yomam sarveshu bhuteshu santam atmanam ishwaram hitvarcharam bhajante maudya bhasmayat eva juhoita saha. What about translation for 22nd verse? Yaha, one who, mam, may, sarveshu, in all, bhuteshu, living entities, santam, being present, atmanam, the Paramatma, Ishwaram, the Supreme Lord, hitva, disregarding, archam, the deity, bhajate, worshipped, maudyat, because of ignorance, Bhasmani, into ashes. Eva, only. Juhoti, offers oblations. Saha, he. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation: one who worships the deity of Godhead in the temple but does not know that the Supreme Lord as Paramatma is situated in every living entity's heart must be in ignorance and is compared to one who offers oblation into the ashes. Purport: it is stated clearly herein that Supreme Personality of Godhead, in his plenary expansion as Super Soul, is present in all living entities. The living entities have 84 lakh different kinds of bodies, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is living in every body, both as the individual soul and as the Super Soul. Since the individual soul is a part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, in that sense, the Lord is living in every body. And as Super Soul, the Lord is also present as a witness. In both cases, the presence of God in every living entity is essential. Therefore, persons who profess to belong to some religious sect, but who do not feel the presence of the Supreme Personality of God in every living entity and is everywhere else, are in the mode of ignorance. If without this preliminary knowledge of the Lord's omnipresence, one simply attaches himself to the rituals in a temple, church, or mosque, it is as if he were offering butter into ashes rather than into fire. One offers sacrifice by pouring clarified butter into fire and chanting the Vedic mantras. But even if there are Vedic mantras and all the conditions are favorable, if the clarified butter is poured on ashes, then such a sacrifice will be useless. In other words, a devotee should not ignore any living entity. The devotee must know that in every living entity, however insignificant he may be, even an ant, God is present. And therefore, every living entity should be kindly treated and should not be subjected to any violence. In modern civilized societies, slaughterhouses are regularly maintained and supported by certain type of religious principle. But without knowledge of the presence of God in every living entity, any so-called advancement of human civilization, either spiritual or material, is to be understood as being in mode of ignorance. Om Tat Sat, thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport to the 21st and 22nd verse of 29th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. As we see, the chapter is talking about the spiritual advancement. And here, Mother Devahuti is getting the knowledge from sorry, I'm just trying to stop my sharing. Okay, there we are. Yeah. Kapil Muni is sharing this knowledge which Mother Devahuti has kindly asked him. He says that I'm going to be sharing all the knowledge that you require to understand from me. And we all know the background of this particular chapter, where Kardam Muni's son Kapila Muni is giving knowledge to his mother. Again, the earlier chapters that we've seen, that Kardam Muni, let's just go back a little bit so that all of us can understand it a little better. Is Kardam Muni was a great devotee of the Lord, and he was always worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And one fine day, he gets this desire of, entering into Grahastha ashram. And he prays to the Lord, and the Lord says, yes, I will fulfill your desire. On the parallels, on the other side, Devahuti's father, Manu, is also looking for an appropriate husband for his daughter, Devahuti, who's very, very qualified. And this qualified girl needs a qualified husband. So he approaches Kardama Muni, and Kardama Muni, as he had desired from the Lord, knows that this is the desire of the Lord and accepts Devahuti as his wife. Mother Devahuti, who's born in a royal family, has always been around with so many other people to help her around. The dasis, and she has always been, treated like queen and a princess, comes to the ashram of Kardam Muni and starts serving him. And she serves him so nicely that he is very, very happy. And to make him happy, Mother Devahuti actually leaves all her pleasures of the princely or a kingly life that, the kings leave, or the princess or the queens leave. And she continues to serve him, daily cleaning the whole ashram, making preparations for the yagyas, making preparations for the other areas, ensuring that enough bhoga is prepared and then offered to the Lord. And once the offering is done, offer it to the Vaishnavas, offer it to the devotees who are around. This has been her regular activity, which has been going on for quite some time. And at one point of time, she feels that her life is not complete as a grahastha without having children. So she expresses her mind or expresses her desire to Kardam Muni, and Kardam Muni accepts it. And he says, yes, Devi, I will fulfill your desire. But the day the child is born, I will leave the house and move towards the forest for the final destiny that I would like to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it so happened that Devahuti then, begets a child, and the child is born. And as promised or as committed earlier, Kardamuni leaves the house on that particular day to go to the forest and perfect his life, or dedicating his life completely at the lotus feet of the Lord. And Mother Devahuti here takes care of the little child, Lord Kapila. Kapila is none other than Krishna himself, Supreme Personality of Godhead, who's come from the womb. Well, the Lord never is born, but he appears. So, he's appeared from the womb of Devahuti, and she continues to take care of him well and gives him nice Vedic education, and then he grows up. And at one fine day, he's so grown up that, now he is in a position to give knowledge to Mother. And here, Mother Devahuti, who's actually brought him up all these days and given him the knowledge, seeks his shelter and then takes knowledge from him. So when we say when she seeks the shelter, our Vedic Shastras very clearly say that the girl cannot be independent or a woman cannot be independent. When she or he is born, when she is born, she is under the care of the father, under the protection of the father. And when she gets married, she is under the protection of the husband. And when, if by chance the husband leaves the body or he goes to the forest for perfecting his life, then the mother comes under the care of the son. So that's the Vedic parampara that we follow. And here we see that Mother Devahuti is under the care of Kapila Muni. And Kapila Muni is actually taking care of her very well and giving her the Vedic knowledge that is required. She also accepts him as his guru because he's taking knowledge. So age cannot be a bar, relation cannot be a bar for accepting a bona fide spiritual master. A bona fide spiritual master should be accepted because of his knowledge, not because of his birth or not because of his age and not because of his relationship with the hearer. So it is very clearly said that, Devahuti is gaining this knowledge. And in this particular chapter, which is known as the explanation of the devotional service by Lord Kapila, Mother Devahuti had a lot of questions to ask him, saying that, what do I do? How do I do? How do I get spiritual knowledge? How do I practice spiritual life? And how do I perfect my life? So here Kapila Muni is giving her the complete knowledge of the devotional service. And as we ensue, there are various topics that have been discussed by Kapila Muni here. And today's discussion is more to do with about the availability of the soul and the super soul. And when the soul is there in the body, he has to respect the others as the souls as well as the other souls. As we have heard in the lecture of Srila Prabhupada many times, that if someone cannot relate with others respectfully, this is very important in this shloka, it says respectfully. What is respectfully? Respectfully is appropriate situation due to respect from the point of view of an absolute consciousness. Unless we respect the other living entities, we cannot worship the deities. And even if we worship the deities, it will be of no use at all. So if he sees God and deities, it's a limited consciousness. If an individual is seeing God in the deity form alone. And Krishna consciousness is all about limitless, Tattva Krishna. Yeah, and it is called limitless Krishna. We're all speaking about those who are practicing Krishna consciousness. Here, Krishna is limitless. God is everywhere, and we do not worship in the temple. And the same say that God is only, and some of them say that the God is only in the temple, in the deity. Why do I have to bother? And that's another extreme, somebody who says God is everywhere. Why do I have to worship God in the temple? These are two extreme situations. Both of them, if you see, are ignorant paradigm. God is there everywhere. And to feel the presence of the God in the heart of everyone is the most important part of it. It is not possible without hearing. It is not possible for anybody to feel the presence of the God in anybody's heart without hearing. Directly to see something or to have Shraddha or faith. So if you see, let's take an example. If you see a blind man standing, he's standing before a huge mountain. And if he has faith, he will agree to you saying that, there's a mountain. So when you describe mountain in front of him, saying that there's a huge mountain in front of you, which has a lot of beautiful, green trees on it. And this mountain also has a lot of boulders and, there's a pathway to go up to the mountain. Unless this blind man who's standing in front of you, if he has faith, he will agree with you. Unless he has faith, he will not agree with you. And at the same time, if he has faith, he'll agree with you. He may not be able to feel the mountain by his eyes because he is blind, as a normal person would see. But because of his faith, he will be able to see the mountain in front of him. And that's existential presence. Or, there are two types of presence: existential presence and experimental presence. So there are many times that I know it exists, but I cannot experiment it. What are the examples of the existence, but you cannot experiment or you cannot experience it? Is all of us use mobile phones. Mobile phones have the signals which follow. Can any one of us see it? We all know it exists, but you can't experience it. You can't touch it. You can't feel it. You can't see it. But we all know it is existing. Likewise, if you see air, all of us say, yes, we breathe air. Do we all see air? No, it cannot be seen. But we know it is there. It exists. We may not see the Lord by our eyes, but with the existential faith that we have, we know he is existing. And I could feel the presence of the Lord. And this will continuously purify, when we say that, yes, the Lord is present, Krishna is present, his existential faith is there, then it will purify our consciousness. And someday we will be able to see him in front of us as Pratyaksha Rupa. He will be standing in front of you and you will be able to have his darshan. But one should not feel that the existential presence is limited. No, it is not limited. It is unlimited. Krishna Tattva is unlimited. So is the existential presence also is unlimited. Here in this verse, we are speaking about the presence of the super soul in everyone's heart. And we like to know why Krishna. We say every autumn there is presence of Krishna, there is presence of the soul, there is presence of the super soul. And that's why we heard about the previous verse that you will start feeling about him once you hear about him. In the previous verse yesterday we discussed, we have heard that you should actually start feeling about him once you hear about him. So hearing is the most important part of it. When you start hearing about him, you will start feeling about it. By hearing his qualities, by hearing his pastimes, by hearing his glories, we know what's his nature. Yeah. And once we know his nature, we'll start feeling about him. Like our mind has different slices. While we are in the class, we feel it from one point of view. While we are going out, it's the different slice which is thinking. While we are speaking to others, it's a different slice. Lord thinking and willing and feeling. In his incarnation as super soul, we get to hear about him. And what's the Lord's role in the material world? By repeatedly hearing about him, we can feel how the Lord is. And what is he based on and what does he do? The way we see the super soul is the way of knowing that the super soul is seeing you. It's not a one-way traffic, He's seeing the super soul and the super soul is also seeing us. Super soul is also thinking about us. Super soul is also feeling. He's also expecting something. And what is our super soul expecting? Our super soul is expecting us to eternally be situated with him. That means we have come out, unfortunately, at this point of time, and he wants us to go back to Godhead. And what is there in the mind of the super soul? He's seeking that every entity rejoins him back in Goloka. He's seeking that every entity gives away the fruitive activities. And he says, it is Sat Chit Ananda. And the living entity feels that I should get all this on my own, which is not practical at all. So we have to really realize that, yes, I have to give up these fruitive activities. I have to give up all these material activities that I have, and I have to go back home. And that's what is the super soul also desiring from us. How does the Lord do it? He has his own scheme of sending Guru. He has, his own scheme of us meeting with the sadhus. He also has his shastras, which teach us the same. And this way, we can perceive the mind of Paramatma. Paramatma is sitting in our heart. Yep. So Srila Prabhupada made this very strong statement. He says, don't try to see God. Act in such a way that God is seeing you. It's a very powerful way of being conscious of God. Now, it's just that, I want to see God. No, not that. You do something by which the Lord sees you. Now, how do we do something that the Lord sees us? We can't see the Lord face to face at this point of time. So how do we do that? How can we, do something which the God likes? So he sends his representatives like the acharyas and the guru. So whatever the guru wants us to do, if we are able to perform that, God will be happy and he will see us. Likewise, when we perform our activities as per the shastras, as per the guidelines of the sadhus, God will be happy, Krishna will be happy, and then he will see us. So Srila Prabhupada's statements of saying that don't try to see God, act in such a way that the God is seeing you. When you do the things right, God will feel, oh, he is my son who's following me very nicely. He's following all my instructions. Let me look at him. Likewise, a guru, when he is giving instruction, he is actually taking all the instructions from Krishna. Evam parampara praptam. In the parampara, that we get all the knowledge, Guru is trying to give it to us. And when he is giving the knowledge to us, he is also expecting us to follow it. And when we follow it, Guru will be happy. And ultimately, when Guru is happy, Krishna will also be very happy. So being conscious of a person means that feeling that the person is seeing you. Being a super soul, consciousness is to meet up to his expectation. And at the same time, I should not displease the super soul. If we keep thinking about this, our consciousness will merge into the transcendental plane. That will make us Krishna conscious or conscious of Krishna. How does the Lord see us? We have to learn that. And how do we learn that? To be conscious of the Lord. Every time thinking about the Lord, whatever you do, talk about Lord. Whomever you meet, speak about the glories of the Lord. While you're in the temple, serve the deities. While you're in the temple, clean the altar. While you're in the temple, clean the temple hall. So that means you are always in the consciousness of the Lord. You'll think that, yes, I'm doing it for Jagannath. Jagannath will be happy. I'm doing it for Gauragi Bangaloreshwar. I'm making this nice garland for her. I'm making a nice garland for Shri Lakshmi Narsingadev. So whatever we do, if we are doing it in the consciousness of the Lord, then the Lord sees us. It is there in the scriptures. There is no concoction. And this is there in all our shastras. So if we are knowing what the Lord is thinking or what he is feeling and what he is willing, we are conscious of him. For karmis, God is the provider, maintainer of everything. The role of the Lord in the heart is like a Chaitya Guru. He's sitting in our heart, everybody's heart. It is not your heart or my heart. Lord is sitting in everybody's heart as Chaitya Guru. And it's important to understand the external spiritual master is actually the manifestation of the role to start with. And spiritual master is a pure devotee and a confident associate of the Lord. But for somebody to understand that one matter, one needs to cross the understanding of the consciousness. And how does one come out of the bodily concept of? That's the basic, and that one needs to understand. In Bhagavad Gita 10.10 says, Kesham satata yuktanam bhajata birti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenimam upayantite. He says, to those who are consciously or constantly devoted in serving me with love, I give them the understanding by which they come to me. Yeah. So Krishna himself confirms this. So when a person knows the goal of life, but if he is addicted to fruitive activities, he is acting in the karma yoga. And when he knows that goal is Krishna, but he takes pleasure in mental speculation to understand Krishna, he's acting in jnana yoga. And when he knows the goal and seeks Krishna completely, he's in Krishna consciousness or devotional service. He's acting in bhakti yoga or buddhi yoga, which is the complete yoga. The complete yoga is the highest perfectional stage of life. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions that a person may have a bona fide spiritual master and may be attached to a spiritual organization. But if he is still not intelligent enough to make progress, then Krishna from within gives him the instructions so that he may ultimately come to him without difficulty. So he's sitting in our heart as Chaitya and he's guiding us. The qualification of that person is always to engage himself in Krishna consciousness with love and devotion, render all kinds of services. He should perform some sort of work for Krishna, and that work should be with love. If a devotee is not intelligent enough to make progress in the path of self-realization, but is sincere and devoted to the activities of devotional service, the Lord gives him a chance to make progress and ultimately attain him. Krishna confirms so clearly that, if we do not have so much of, intelligence, but still we are sincere and devoted in the activities of devotional service, then Lord gives us the chance to make the progress. And ultimately, the whole goal is to attain him, and he allows us, or he makes us attain that goal. And that is the relation with super soul. When somebody sees the super soul and the external spiritual master speaking the same language, then the understanding of tattva is arrived. Similarly, if somebody can see Srila Prabhupada only in his deity form, or only in his personal form, he is not seeing what he is spreading across the universe everywhere and spreading Krishna consciousness. If that is not seen, they are still in the neophyte disciple stage. Srila Prabhupada will be very happy if we identify ourselves and preach the holy name of the Lord. Like the lusty man is always looking for some sense gratification. Likewise, an inquisitive person or a devotee is always looking at satisfying the needs of the soul. The soul is always looking for satisfaction. We're all saying Satchit Ananda. We are eternal. We're always happy, eternally happy. We do not desire trouble. And we should also not look at troubling our super soul with our material wants or desires. Many times, we are only focused on our material wants and desires. In that way, we are actually troubling our super soul, or we are actually, inconveniencing our super soul, because the super soul wants you to come back home, back to Godhead. The Lord will take care of all the devotees who have faith in the Lord. And the relationship between the super soul and the soul is very, very sacred. And the power of perception comes through a spiritual master. Okay? In the Guru Astakam that we sing, Yasya Prasada Bhagavad Prasado, Yasya Prasada Nakati Kutopi, Dvayantu Ansasta, Tasya Yasyastri Sanvyam, Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam. Yasya Prasada Bhagavad Prasado, Yasya Prasada Nakati Kutopi, Dvayam Stuvam Tasya Yasyastri Sandhyam, Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam. By satisfying the spiritual master, the Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes satisfied. And by not satisfying the spiritual master, there is no chance of being promoted to the plane of Krishna consciousness. If somebody feels, I can do all by myself, I don't need a guru, I will not make my guru happy, I will not follow the instructions of my guru, there's absolutely no chance of promoting to the plane of Krishna consciousness. And therefore, I should meditate and pray for his mercy 3 times a day and offer my respectful obeisances unto him, my spiritual master. The whole process, however, depends on the perfect knowledge of the super soul beyond the conception of the body. And not theoretically, but practically. When there is no longer a chance for sense gratification manifested in the spiritual activities. And one who's firmly fixed his mind is diverted by various types of fruitive acts. Then one pleases the super soul and you get the mercy of the Supreme Lord. There is a stage in Krishna consciousness where without the mercy of the super soul, you don't get spiritual master. This is before we come to Srila Prabhupada. So they say this is because of the mercy of the super soul, you get spiritual master. And once you get the spiritual master with his mercy, you can understand the super soul. You see how it goes? Both ways, back and forth. Without the mercy of the super soul, you don't get a spiritual master. And once you get the spiritual master, because of the mercy of super soul, you realize super soul. Yeah. The entire material world is a school. And at some point of time, because of our learnings, we are brought to a bona fide spiritual master. And then we come to realize the super soul. Earlier, without knowing the super soul, he brought me to a guru. So it is super soul who brings one to the guru, and the guru brings him to one realization of the super soul. By spiritual master's instructions, or the services that he engages, or the knowledge that he gives us, we get realization of God. And that's what we need to understand is the role of the super soul. Krishna is Jagat Guru, and all those who are preaching or teaching Krishna consciousness are his expansions. And he is the manifestation of the energy of Supreme Soul. For perceiving the super soul, we need to read the scriptures. The best ways to feel the person is to feel his mind and the situation. For example, if somebody comes to you with a problem and tells you that, I would like to seek your help, you actually make him sit. You see the person, you start feeling his mind when he is expressing you something, and you feel the presence. So when we chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It's the devotional service. He has descended in his holy name. Krishna has given, or he has descended in his holy name. We chant on the instructions of the spiritual master. And the Lord takes Avtara and he becomes the sound vibration. That's we call it as Nama Avatar. And in this Yuga, Kali Yuga, one can make rapid progress if you develop this one Ruchi, one single Ruchi. And we all know that Lord is omnipotent. And then he says, let me appear in front of you and take your seva. So that's the way one can really progress in spiritual life. And when we see this, knowledge which is given by Kapila Muni, in the next shloka, that is 22nd shloka, he says, one who worships the deity of the Lord in the temple but does not know that Supreme Lord as a Paramatma is situated in everybody's heart must be in ignorance and is compared to one who offers oblation into ashes. We've all seen when we do yagna, we offer clarified butter, we offer ghee into the yagya. And when we offer ghee into the yagya actually comes out nicely. But at the same time, if the yagya is completely over, there is no fire in the yagya, there's only ashes there. What is the use of offering the clarified butter or ghee into it? It is absolutely useless. So a person who is actually worshipping the deity in the temple, but does not know the Supreme Lord as the Paramatma, is actually wasting his time. He's actually wasting his efforts. He's wasting his energy. Because it is compared here as offering the clarified butter into ashes rather than offering it in the yagya. In the second, this one, Srila Prabhupada very nicely describes it. Let me just read this for the benefit of all of us. If without this preliminary knowledge of the Lord's omnipresence, one simply attaches himself to rituals in the temple, church or mosque, it is as if he were offering butter into ashes, then into fire. One offers sacrifice by pouring clarified butter into fire and chanting the Vedic mantras. But even if the Vedic mantras are there and all the conditions are available, if the clarified butter is poured onto ashes, then such a sacrifice will be useless. So it says a devotee should not ignore any living entity. The devotees must know that every living entity, however insignificant he may be, even as an ant, God is present. So we have to feel the presence of God everywhere. Even in an ant, there's presence of God. And therefore, every living entity should be kindly treated and should not be subjected to any violence. And later Srila Prabhupada goes on to give the example of the slaughterhouses which we are maintaining. When we say we, there are certain classes of people who maintain slaughterhouses, and that's where it is compared to that it should not be done. So I think we've completed our discussion on these two shlokas today. If there are any more questions, I'll be happy to take them, or if there are any comments or if there are any observations, please go ahead and make them. Thank you very much for your patient hearing. So today's topic that we discussed was actually very, very subtle topic, about soul and the super soul, Atma and Paramatma, and connecting Atma to Paramatma. How does Atma get guidance from the Paramatma who's sitting in our heart as Chaitya Guru? So very subtle subject and a very, very important subject for one to understand, saying that if we don't recognize the presence of Paramatma within our heart and the presence of Atma in somebody else, then there is no point in whatever efforts that we put. We are actually in ignorance. So that was the message for today's class. So if there are no questions, then we will end our session here.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna,
I just want to know the difference of Jivatma and then Atma and then Paramatma. Atma, Paramatma, yes, partially I have understood. This Jivatma, what is it, Prabhuji?
Jivatma is basically a part and parcel of the super soul, Paramatma. He comes into existence in the material world and starts identifying himself as from the material world rather than identifying himself rather than in the spiritual world. That's where the difference comes. The Jivatma is somebody who's conditioned soul, who comes into the material world because of whatever desires that we had along with Krishna. And then we said, no, we would like to be independent of what Krishna is saying. I want to be the boss. And then Krishna says, Tathastu, you go down to the material world. And that's where the Jivatma comes. So that's the definition of Jivatma. Paramatma is the Supreme Personality of Godhead who's residing in our heart. And Atma and Paramatma both are together in the same. Srila Prabhupada would always give this example, saying that there are two birds sitting on the tree. One is the soul and the other one is the super soul. The soul is going on doing all his activities, and the super soul sitting right next to him is observing him and noting him what he's doing. So that's the soul and the super soul and the Jivatma. I hope that clarifies your doubt, Mataji.
Is it Sukshma Sarira, what we call Jivatma?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Guru Maharaj ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Wishing you all a wonderful Kartik Mass, which has just started 3 days back, and let's try and increase our spiritual activities during this month of Damodar Kartik Mass, offer the lamp every day and do a lot of preaching, which is very, very dear to Lord Krishna himself and very dear to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Srila Prabhupada. So let's put in our efforts to ensure that we can connect more and more souls to Srila Prabhupada's movement, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement, and let everybody go back home